Hello, gorgeous seekers, and welcome to Moon Magic, to a moon that I am going to have to take some deep breaths and take my time talking through because I will be honest right now, this moon is not necessarily easy. This is the Libra full moon. It's happening on April 19th at 29 degrees of Libra, and it will be going exact at 4:12 a.m. Pacific time. So the early morning hours on the west coast of the US. And this full moon is closing out a cycle where we had a zero degree full moon in Libra in March. And now we have the 29-degree counterpart. So this year we have the blessing of 2 Libra full moons in the 2019 in a row. So this has the impact of kind of having its own cyclical world. It's almost like we've been encapsulated in a little world all of its own between these 2 Libra full moons. So when this full moon comes around, it brings with it the punch of not only what we were focusing on with the Aries new moon, but also what we were focusing on in the Libra full moon last month, and tying it all together and having huge, profound breakthroughs. And there's some kind of special medicine going on with this Libra full moon because it's not easy. Like I said, this is not an easy moon. In fact, as I was looking at the aspects and as I was tapping into this energy, it made me think about the classic symbolism of lunacy, howling at the moon, all that kind of stuff that comes with the mythology and the folk tales of people losing their minds at the full moon and doing kind of wild things or kind of just losing their sense of rational balance, which is funny because, I mean, Libra is a sign of rational balance. It's a sign of relationships, but the way that this moon is aspecting, we're getting a little bit more of that volatile, catalytic feeling. And so it means that when that kind of energy is working with us, we want to make sure we're taking extra care of ourselves and, quite honestly, just minding our own business. The first thing I want to say before we start talking about the aspects is this is a moon I would highly suggest not utilizing numbing agents, not trying to dull yourself down or push down and suppress what you're feeling or what's coming up, because if you try and suppress it and do it with numbing agents of any kind, even if it's just for fun, you will find that your reactions to this energy can kind of, while they get repressed, they come out kind of wonky and sideways, and it makes it harder for you to kind of see what's going on. And that will leave you kind of feeling like you're in a hall of mirrors, and it can get really disorienting. That's just one thing I want to say about this moon. There's not a ton of aspecting, but there are a couple really important things going on with this full moon that give it the character and the quality of all the warnings I've just been giving you here. So the moon is 29 degrees of Libra. The sun is at 29 degrees of Aries. And Uranus is at 2 degrees of Taurus. So within a 2 to 3 degree radius of the sun, which means that Uranus and the sun are opposing the moon. They're teaming up in Aries and Taurus, and they're directly opposing the moon. Now, the moon is this emotional, tender energy, right? It has to do with our relationship to our internal world, to our mothers, to self-mothering. So every time there's a full moon, we are examining a different aspect of the mother archetype. In Libra, that has to do with our relationships, right? And so that's getting lit up, which is already a really tender placement. Every time the moon is in Libra, there's a tenderness there. There's kind of a vulnerability there that I think we all feel. And that rational Libran energy is kind of coerced into this moon-like, fantastical, emotional deep dive. And it's opposing the sun, and the sun is right there with Uranus, and they're like, we want to make radical change. We want to make changes in our life. We want to have control. Especially the sun wants the control. The sun in Aries is definitely exalted. It's high energy. It wants to get moving. Uranus, on the other hand, in Taurus, we're getting used to this new transit. We're still kind of feeling it out. But Uranus is the planet of transformation, of revolution, of shift, of sudden changes, of all of those type of surprising energies. It can feel erratic, it can feel electrical. It's a very electrical planet. And it wants to have sudden change. So you can imagine if you have the moon, the luminary, lighting up how we relate to others, how we love, how our patterning when it comes to relationships, especially those deep one-on-one relationships, and then you have the sun and Uranus ready to get into some trouble, you can see how that impulsive desire to control the situation, to get your answers quickly, and to know what the outcome is going to be right now, today, I need to know, can start to come up. Those surges of I want to just be in charge and take charge of this situation. I just want to know and be done with any second guessing or anything. That's coming out, and that is that kind of agitated full moon energy, right? And that's why I was saying that it's kind of got that thing. It's got this electrical pulse to it, which can make you feel like you need to take charge, like you need to take action, like you need to revolutionize something that's been bothering you. But here's the thing, the actual lesson that's going on there is remembering to surrender. Free will is a really important thing, and often when we're manifesting, we want to get into that headspace where like, I'm feeling it, I know this is what I want, I know this is how it goes, but we have to remember that other beings are involved in our manifestation goals, and especially when it comes to relationship, those are other free will beings that have their own process they're going through, their own needs, their own desires. So when you start to try and put that directional manifestational energy on others, not only do you feel the discordance of that within your physical body, it's a form of self-harm. It's a form of lowering your self-value when you do that. You also affect and disrupt other people's energy channels. And not only that, it doesn't bring you what you actually need. And a lot of times what we end up doing is we manhandle situations and we get in there and we try and take control, and then we find that the outcome is something either a little less than what we really desired, or that it kind of it ruffles some feathers, it causes some extra drama, it causes some extra pain that really wasn't necessary. So these aspects are doing that. There's another thing going on here though as well, and let me look at all my aspects, because we also have the Venus and Moon quincunx. And so Venus is at 28 degrees of Pisces and the Moon is at 29 degrees of Libra. So this is an almost exact quincunxes. It's like 5 signs apart, so it's not an opposition, it's not a square. It's a slightly uncomfortable apples and oranges kind of face-off that happens with a quincunx. And Pisces and Libra definitely operate in very different modalities. So Venus in Pisces is so tender, so emotional, loves affection, wants to go deep, wants to be romantic and sweet and dreamy. And so it's, once again, another one of these really vulnerable placements that's happening here. And that desire to get the love and the approval, to kind of collapse into another person, to dissolve into one being, that desire is really strong there with Venus in Pisces. But it's squaring off against this rather quincunxing, this electrical, emotive, relational moon. And once again, it's highlighting this desire. Like, we want to control outcomes. We want to control how it goes about. It can bring up a lot of our attachment types. So anybody who's studied that, it's a kind of a helpful framework sometimes to understand ourselves and our own defense mechanisms. But our attachment types, there's anxious, there's avoidant. Those kinds of things can come up thematically with the type of energy that's coming up with this moon. So it's something to keep in mind. You may relapse into your personal protective mechanisms, which can be to control, to disappear, to act like you don't care, or to over-emote. Everybody has a different way that they handle their more vulnerable underbelly. And everybody's going to be tempted, I think, this moon, Page of Pentacles, to let that get the better of them. Now, this full moon is also just a couple of days after we fully integrated the Mercury retrograde in Pisces. A couple days before this full moon, Mercury will have stationed past where the post-shadow phase ends, and so we will be fully integrated with what we learned in March. We will also be fully integrating what we learned between the last Libra full moon and this Libra full moon. And not only that, but this is a full moon that I've noticed. Look back at what you were doing on the Libra full moon last year and look at what lessons were coming up karmically for you, if you felt that it was karmic, or what projects or processes you were coming up against last April, because you may be finding this is a point where you're breaking away from that. The Aries for new moon that we just had as well was such a pioneering energy of it's time for things to be different. It's time for things to not go back the same way. This full moon is also speaking to us getting that chance to hit up against discomfort and still decide that it's worth continuing to go forward into this new world, and it's still worth showing up to this next table that we have set up for ourselves, and that we don't actually want to relapse into these old patterns that aren't really that sexy or exciting, and just encourage codependent relationships. And quite honestly, this moon is saying that kind of codependent understanding of relationship, whether it be with family, friends, and especially lovers, is not love. It's control. It's a desire for ego. It's a desire to master. And what we're really wanting to do is master ourselves, is to be in love with ourselves. And that sounds really cheesy, but it is a very big lifelong practice. And we are getting highlighted hugely with that. Now, oh my gosh, you guys. Page of Pentacles, Page of Wands, High Priestess, Page of Swords. Now, full moons are always message bringers, right? They tend to bring us insight, you know, because they illuminate the whole sky. They get the conversation going and they say, here it is. We're here. We are going to show you what we got as far as information. You get a lot of information with full moons, sometimes so much so that it can be a little overwhelming, and that's part of the reason it feels so emotional. Well, you have 3 pages here. And the High Priestess, who's holding court over her 3 pages and what they have to tell us. And I find that really interesting. Now, the 3 pages that did come up each have a different focus. Page of Pentacles is how we're taking care of our finances, our health, our responsibilities, what we want to do. Page of Wands, our creativity, our spark, our divine spark, how we're using our energy to move forward through the world. And Page of Swords, how we're communicating our needs, how we're communicating what we want, how we're using our words and our thoughts to make life better or meaningful or shift it. The magic of words, right? They have a spell creating power to them vibrationally. So there's this impulse, right, with all of this page energy to have the answers, to have the conversations, to get the news, to put this piece over here and this piece over here. Now, I know I've been kind of like in warning mode with this moon, because I do think that everybody's going to be feeling really vulnerable, and because of the vulnerability is going to want to find ways to control outcome, and to control each other, and to control what we feel we need to come in, and it's just a big surge of information. However, it's not a cynical moon. It's revolutionary, right? Uranus is involved, which means there is a revolution going on here. There is a newness. There is a new chapter beginning to open up for all of us here. So, if you have all these pages working with you, this is what I will say. Messages that come through that are clear, that are kind, that are giving, that are supportive, will be true, will be good messages that will probably carry you forward into this new world and this new energetic cycle, this long-range 7-year energetic cycle with a lot of clarity and good intent. Messages that come through that are muddled, manipulative, needy, hungry for more, needing to have all the answers now, are messages that are merely reflecting back at you where you're holding yourself prisoner to old ideals of power and love. And the trick is always with full moons figuring out which is a really valuable lesson, something that you can take with you, person, situation, insight that you can take with you and that you're going to open up and harvest, and which is something that comes with the fragile, intense electrical energy of a full moon, which is which, and sorting that out has everything to do with the High Priestess. The High Priestess sits in Solomon's temple, and she's a gatekeeper between, not even a gatekeeper, she is a conduit between 2 worlds. She sits between the seen and the unseen. She is deeply tied to the moon, as you will see here. She's deeply tied to the divine feminine. She's tied to Isis and Inanna, all the great goddesses that have to do with resurrection, the understanding of life and death, birth and death. She's ancient feminine wisdom. And she's holding court over 3 young pages who are get up and go and impatient and hungry for life. Her reminder is that it is beautiful to be excited and impatient and hungry for the love and the adventure and the physical manifestation and experience of our lives. It is a good thing to feel that excitement and that electrical charge. It is a good thing to put pieces together. It is a good thing to take risks. It is a good thing to share of our hearts and express our creativity and to go for what we want. But whatever we are asking for, whatever we are communicating, must come from a place of deep self-worth and calm and knowing, in order for it to be something that is about building and creating and not about destruction and self-imprisonment. We often confuse our gatekeepers and our desire for control as a form of freedom, as a form of empowerment, as a form of strength, when in reality what it is it's holding us captive in this sense that we know best. Our little analytical minds know best, and that is where we're going to get our answers. But in fact, a lot of times our analytical mind tells us stories about the world around us and what we think is correct in order to make sense of reality. And yet, the number of things that go right in a day, the number of things that line up in order to get us where we need to go are so infinite and minute. There is no way that our conscious minds can encapsulate that in a storyline. And this moon is a reminder that we can't do it that way. That we can't always pre-write stories. In fact, what we need to do is we need to surrender into faith more deeply than ever. And that is what the High Priestess is saying here. You have to surrender to your faith more deeply than ever. The more you do so, the more you relax into this, you cede that sense of control, the more quickly the very answers you have been after all along, and probably a lot of you since February, since the beginning of the year, since Jupiter went into Sagittarius, things that you've been wanting to get your hands on, wanting to understand, can only come after the surrender. And here's where all those pages come in. These are answers. These are moments of clarity. These are messengers of abundance and fun and play and opportunity. They're messengers of movement and excitement. They bring something beautiful to the table. They bring opportunity to the table, but they can only be seen. They can only be perceived. They can only be connected to and understood and experienced when we have surrendered ourselves. We have let the gates down. We have stopped trying to be the jailer of our own lives and our own storylines. We have stopped trying to manhandle our storylines and pre-write it and say, this is what it's supposed to be. And you're supposed to play this role, and you're supposed to play this role, and I'm supposed to play this role. And why isn't anybody doing it? That is a form of imprisonment. These pages are beckoning you to freedom, but they're going to deliver you that freedom, one, after you have surrendered and you have released and you have let go and you have taken a deep breath and you have let the river of life take you with it. And when you trust that what will come to you, what will be right for you, is something that will probably be surprising. It will probably be something that you could not have pre-written. And these goods do often come once the full moon has gone exact and we have had a moment to sit with the discomfort, we have had a moment to sit with the illumination, then things can move forward. But I do think with this moon, what you're going to want to do is take some time to be in the sacred with it. Take some time to be not numbed out, to be very conscious of where you're wanting to clench up, where you're wanting to have control, where you're wanting to numb out or check out. Sit with it. Hear it out. And I promise you, you don't have to be scared of this moon. You don't have to worry that it's going to cause your whole life to erupt. But you may be witnessing yourself at a pretty profound level, almost as though you can step outside of yourself and look at yourself from a different vantage point. And that can feel a little overwhelming. It's a lot of information. It's a lot of information coming in with this full moon. Right? And the note, I put a lot of notes here. I didn't even get to everything I wrote, but I did write this in all caps. So we're going to close out with this sentiment here tonight, my friends. Surrender completely. Allow grace in. Stop trying to make others do your bidding as though they were actors in your play and you're a dictatorial director. And be with yourself. Really be with yourself. Your inner dictator may want to come up and come out and have a say in how things go, but this is a time for grace and peace. This is a time to realize that in our desire for control, we are actually blocking ourselves from experiencing profound and true love, not only within ourselves, but in those others with free will who would come in and share at our table. Where we hold the most resistance is often where we are calling for the most love and the most grace. And it's important to pay attention to where we feel that tension and that resistance, because it is truly where we are meant to be loved the most and meant to experience love the most. But we have to find the doorway that takes us into that space. I'm wishing you all a beautiful full moon. Genuinely take such good care of yourselves. Be gentle, be kind. It has been a really emotionally intense and difficult time for many people this year. The last couple of months have caused a lot of people to feel that they need to retract, they're shutting down, or that they're losing their footing a little bit. Some people have experienced it that way. Some people have experienced it as much more of a nesting or an egg situation where there's been a need to slow down and to take good care of ourselves and turn into goop before we turn into something else. There's been a lot of intensity. I think coming into this moon, there is a fragility that we are all feeling with all these major shifts. There is a sense that we are kind of unarmed and open, and that causes some of this desire to tense. So I'm really urging you all just to take immaculate care of yourselves. Let it surprise you. Let it bring in all the warmth that is meant for you. I promise it will be beautiful if you can take a deep breath and be there with yourself, self-mother, self-father. We talk about that a lot with the full moon. Self-mothering is deeply important, and this is a great time to do that. Gently proceed into this. I love you all so much. You can find me at Sarah Verba on Instagram. That is my handle. You can also find me at sarahverba.com. I'll leave all of that in the description box. I am wearing my PinkLune as always. She is my queen and my friend and my empress, and everything is handmade and just made with so much love from another loving heart like mine to you, so you can go check her out. I'm so grateful for all of you. I love you so much. I definitely came into filming this video feeling pretty tender myself. I haven't felt like posting a lot or being super out there and visual on the internet recently, and it's been a quiet time, and that has been really good for me. But I know a lot of you have also been experiencing some pretty profound and deep shifts, and I'm just really grateful for you guys, and grateful for this space that we create together, and very curious to see what all these pages are about and what all the opportunity is that is coming our way. Let us sit with the High Priestess, sit in our divine feminine, and rest into the waters of mystery, grace, and peace. I love you so much.